Keisha knelt on the cold linoleum floor of the Chicago Medical Center at 4 in the morning, her knees pressed against tile that never seemed to warm no matter how many hours she worked. The air carried the sharp scent of industrial disinfectant, mixed with the faint metallic smell of medical equipment as she scrubbed the baseboards with a bristled brush that had worn thin from months of use. Her hands moved in steady circles left to right, dip into the bucket, wring the cloth, repeat. A rhythm she had learned to perform without thinking. She was a night nurse and medical assistant, 38 years old, with calloused palms and a back that ached by midday, invisible to most who passed through these halls. The medical practice belonged to Dr. Sarah Chen, a renowned surgeon whose skill announced itself in every corner. The imported marble floors beneath her knees, the state-of-the-art surgical suites with equipment that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. The mahogany reception desk that curved like a question mark. The walls are lined with framed medical degrees and awards. Keisha had cleaned every inch of this practice, knew every creak in the floorboards, every stubborn stain on the waiting room chairs. Yet she had never sat in the leather chairs in the consultation rooms or touched the gold-rimmed coffee service except to wash it. Dr. Sarah's wedding was 3 weeks away, and the practice buzzed with preparation. Florists arriving with white orchids, caterers tasting menu options in the break room, a wedding planner with a clipboard discussing final arrangements. Keisha worked through her tasks without complaint. She mopped the floors before sunrise, sanitized the examination rooms until they gleamed, restocked medical supplies until her arms trembled, organized files until she could see her tired face reflected in the glass cabinet doors. She had arrived at this practice 4 years ago, 34 years old, carrying only a worn tote bag with 2 sets of scrubs and a photograph of her twin daughters, 9 years old then, who had kissed her forehead and whispered, "Come home safe, Mama. We love you." Her daughter Sophia's heart was weak, her twin sister Maya thin and constantly worried. And Keisha had learned early that survival meant silence, gratitude, and never asking for more than what was given. Dr. Sarah treated her with a kindness that surprised her. She learned her name within a week, thanked her when she prepared the surgical suites, once gave her an extra week's wages when Sophia fell ill and needed emergency care. She had thought in quiet moments while sterilizing instruments or organizing medical charts in the supply room that good people still existed in this world, that wealth did not always corrupt, that perhaps her hard work would be rewarded with stability, with enough money to pay for Sophia's surgery and keep Maya fed and safe in their small apartment on the south side, where mold grew in the corners and the heat never worked in winter. But beneath her gratitude, Keisha carried a secret heaviness, a feeling she could not name, an intuition that something in this practice was not as it appeared, that the laughter echoing through the halls was too bright, too brittle, like glass waiting to shatter. Before we continue with this story, please subscribe to this channel. It means everything to us. My mom said I can't get to 1,000 subscribers. Let's prove her wrong. And don't forget to like this video so more people can hear this tale. Now, let us continue. Dr. Sarah's medical practice sprawled across the entire 4th floor of a downtown Chicago building with 6 examination rooms, 3 surgical suites, a recovery wing with private rooms, and a consultation area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The waiting room had Italian leather chairs, a coffee bar with premium beans, and abstract art that cost more than Keisha would earn in 5 lifetimes. Every surface whispered wealth and success. The silk curtains, the medical equipment gleaming like polished chrome, the orchids that arrived weekly from a florist in the Gold Coast. Keisha had grown up in a 2-room apartment on the south side of Chicago, where her husband had died when she was 30, leaving her to work triple shifts as a nursing assistant, a night janitor, and a weekend home health aide that left her hands raw and red. Her daughters, identical twins, ate 2 meals a day if they were lucky. And she had learned to stretch a single chicken into 4 dinners, to mend clothes until there was more thread than fabric, to walk 3 miles instead of taking the train to save $5. She had been 32 when Sophia's heart murmur was diagnosed, a dangerous valve defect that made every breath a struggle, and 34 when a social worker told her about a renowned surgeon in downtown Chicago who sometimes took on charity cases. She had arrived at Dr. Sarah's office on a gray March morning, wearing scrubs her neighbor had given her, carrying the worn tote bag and a letter of recommendation from a community health clinic director who barely knew her. Dr. Sarah had opened the consultation room door herself, unusual for a surgeon of her status, and studied her with eyes that seemed to see past the nervousness, the hunger, the desperation. "Your daughter needs surgery," she had said gently. "I can do it. No charge. But I need help around the practice. Can you work hard?" "Yes, ma'am," Keisha had replied, her voice steady despite the trembling in her legs. "Then you're hired, and Sophia gets her surgery," Dr. Sarah said, and Keisha had wept with relief right there in the consultation room. Her days began at 4 in the morning and ended after sunset. She mopped floors on her hands and knees until her fingers wrinkled like raisins, carried baskets of medical waste and laundry up and down stairs until her calves burned, sterilized surgical instruments in a stifling room where sweat dripped down her spine, prepared examination rooms she would only see as a worker, never as a patient, and fell into her narrow bed in the small apartment, too exhausted to dream. Her knees bore permanent bruises. Her lower back ached with a dull throb that never fully disappeared, and her hands developed calluses so thick she could barely feel the texture of fabric anymore. But she never complained. Complaining was a luxury for those who had choices, and Keisha had learned that silence was survival, that gratitude kept you employed and got your daughter life-saving surgery. That invisibility was safer than being noticed. She existed in the margins of Dr. Sarah's life, a shadow that moved through rooms, a pair of hands that kept the medical world clean and ordered, a presence so unremarkable that staff members often spoke freely in front of her, as if she were a piece of furniture incapable of hearing or understanding. There was a line in this practice, invisible but absolute, separating those who healed from those who cleaned, those who sat in consultation rooms from those who scrubbed them, those whose lives mattered from those who made those lives possible. Keisha understood this line, respected it, never tried to cross it. Her goal was simple: work hard, send money home, keep Sophia alive, get Maya through school, and maybe, if she was lucky and careful and invisible enough, survive long enough to build something better. But 3 months ago, Dr. Sarah had announced her engagement with a kind of joy that transformed her usually serious face into something girlish and unguarded. "I'm getting married," she had told Keisha one morning while she restocked the supply closet, her smile so wide it seemed her face could barely contain it. "His name is Brandon. He's a doctor, too, joining the practice. He's everything I've ever wanted." Brandon had arrived at the practice a week later in a black Mercedes that purred like a contented cat, stepping out in an expensive suit that probably cost more than Keisha earned in 6 months. His hair was perfectly styled, silver at the temples, and he wore a watch that caught the sunlight and threw tiny rainbows across the parking garage. His cologne, something woody and expensive, announced his presence before he spoke, filling rooms with a scent that made Keisha's nose itch. He was handsome in the way magazine covers were handsome, chiseled, polished, untouchable. Keisha had smiled and offered a greeting when Brandon first entered the practice, a simple, "Good morning, doctor." But his eyes had slid past her without acknowledgement, as if she were transparent, as if the words had been spoken by the air itself. There was no cruelty in the dismissal. That would have required recognition, only a complete absence of awareness that Keisha existed as a person rather than a function. In the weeks that followed, Keisha noticed small things. How Brandon's smile looked different when Dr. Sarah left the room, less warm and more mechanical. How his eyes would glaze with boredom during her stories about complex surgeries, even as he nodded and touched her arm at appropriate moments. How he would check his phone with an urgency that had nothing to do with patient care. But Keisha rationalized these observations away. Brandon must be tired from adjusting to a new practice, overwhelmed by all the decisions about the wedding and merging their professional lives. It was not her place to judge, not her role to question, not her right to suspect. The practice transformed into a whirlwind of preparation. A new computer system was installed. Brandon brought in his own patients, wealthy clients who demanded private rooms and premium services. The staff doubled in size, medical equipment was upgraded, and Dr. Sarah glowed with happiness, believing she had found both professional partnership and personal love. Keisha's workload doubled, then tripled. She sterilized instruments until her reflection wavered in every scalpel and clamp. Sanitized floors that would be walked on by expensive shoes, restocked supplies that seemed to disappear faster than ever, organized files that multiplied overnight. Her body began to fail in small ways. Her hands cramped around the mop handle, her vision blurred from exhaustion. Her legs wobbled when she climbed the stairs to the storage rooms. She lost weight she couldn't afford to lose, her scrubs hanging looser on a frame that was already too thin. But she said nothing because this was temporary, because the wedding would pass, because Sophia needed another checkup soon, and Maya needed books for school, and survival meant endurance. Still, she watched. She could not help but watch. And in watching, she began to see the cracks in Brandon's performance. The way his hand would slip from Dr. Sarah's when he thought she wasn't looking. The way he would make phone calls from his new office with the door almost closed, his voice dropping to a whisper. The way his smile would vanish the instant Dr. Sarah turned her back. Keisha told herself it was nothing. She told herself to focus on her work, to keep her head down, to remember the invisible line she must never cross. She told herself that wealthy doctors were different, that their relationships operated by rules she could not understand, that it was not her place to wonder or worry or care. But deep in her chest, beneath the exhaustion and the hunger and the constant ache, something whispered that she should pay attention, that something was wrong, that the white orchids and diamond ring and medical partnership were hiding a darkness she could not yet name. And then on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks before the wedding, Keisha arrived at the practice at 4 in the morning for her usual shift and noticed something unusual. The lights were on in the medical records room, a room that should have been locked and dark at this hour. She had been pushing her cleaning cart down the hallway, moving quietly as she always did when she saw the light strip under the door. Keisha froze, her hand suspended on the cart handle, her breath caught in her throat. She had not meant to investigate. She had simply been doing her job, existing in her usual invisibility. But now curiosity and concern pulled her forward. She approached the door slowly, carefully, her worn sneakers making no sound on the linoleum. The door was slightly ajar, barely an inch, just enough to see inside. Through the narrow opening, Keisha saw Brandon sitting at the computer terminal, his face illuminated by the blue glow of multiple screens. He had his phone positioned on a tripod, photographing patient files displayed on the monitor. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, opening file after file, pausing to photograph each one. Keisha's stomach turned. This was wrong. Deeply wrong. She should leave, should pretend she saw nothing, should protect herself. But her feet would not move. She watched as Brandon opened another file, and her heart stopped. The name on the screen, large and clear. Rodriguez, Sophia, age 13, her daughter. Brandon zoomed in on Sophia's medication protocol from her last cardiac checkup. Post-operative maintenance, 10 milligrams daily. Keisha knew that number. She had it memorized. She picked up that prescription every month. She watched her daughter take that pill every morning. Then Brandon opened another window, accessed the prescription system, and changed the number. From 10 milligrams to 100 milligrams. A fatal dose, 10 times what Sophia's damaged heart could handle. Keisha's vision blurred at the edges, her hand gripping the cart so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird, and she felt suddenly dizzy, as if the floor had tilted beneath her feet. This could not be real. She must be imagining things, seeing things that weren't there, letting her exhaustion twist innocent actions into nightmares. But then she heard Brandon's voice, cold and satisfied. He was on a video call, his phone propped beside the computer. A woman's face filled the small screen, blonde, angular, sharply beautiful. "How many files now?" the woman asked. 14 patients, Brandon replied, his voice stripped of the warmth he used with Dr. Sarah, sharp and cold as winter glass. "All high-risk cases. All will have complications within the next month. All will point directly to Sarah's negligence, wrong dosages, misdiagnoses, surgical errors that don't exist but will look real in the records." The woman laughed, harsh and cruel. "God, I love that she has no idea. She actually thinks you want to marry her." Brandon's smile was vicious. "The wedding is just paperwork, Michelle. Once I'm legally her spouse, I have access to everything. Her bank accounts, her assets, the practice ownership. Give it 6 months after the marriage, then we start the malpractice lawsuits. By the time the first patient dies, the medical board will be investigating. By the time the third patient dies, she'll be facing criminal charges. And you'll be the concerned husband," Michelle purred, "trying to save the practice while she's arrested. You'll have to take over everything. So tragic, so convenient." "The practice is worth $12 million, Brandon said, leaning back in the chair. "Her personal assets another $8 million. The medical malpractice insurance will pay out millions more before they figure out the records were altered. We split it all, disappear to the Cayman Islands, and Sarah spends the rest of her life in prison for killing her patients." "What about the staff?" Michelle asked. "Will anyone suspect?" Brandon scoffed. "They're idiots. Nurses who do what they're told, cleaning staff who barely speak English, receptionists who care more about their paychecks than patient care. Sarah's the only one with the brains to figure it out, and she's so in love she can't see past her own fantasy. She actually cried when I proposed. God, it was pathetic." "You're sure the alterations won't be traced?" Michelle pressed. "I've been doing this for 2 years, Brandon said. 3 other practices, same method. The key is to change just enough that it looks like human error, not sabotage. A decimal point here, a wrong medication code there, a missed allergy notation. By the time anyone connects the dots, I'm gone, and Sarah's the one who signed off on everything." Keisha's entire body trembled. She wanted to run, to scream, to unsee and unhear what she had just witnessed. But her feet were rooted to the floor. Her mind spun through the implications. Dr. Sarah, who had saved her daughter's life, who had given her work when she was desperate, who treated her like a human being rather than furniture, was walking into a trap. Brandon was going to marry her with lies on his lips and murder in his heart, was going to kill patients, including Sophia, to frame Sarah for medical malpractice, was going to take everything and leave her destroyed. The weight of the knowledge crashed over Keisha like a wave. She pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from making a sound, but in her shock, her elbow bumped the cleaning cart. A bottle of disinfectant fell, hitting the floor with a loud plastic crack that echoed through the silent hallway. Brandon's head snapped toward the door. "Someone's there!" he hissed. Keisha ran. She abandoned the cart and fled down the hallway, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would burst. She heard Brandon's chair scrape, heard his footsteps, heard him yank the door fully open. "Hey, who's out here?" But Keisha had already rounded the corner, had already pushed through the stairwell door, had already begun taking the stairs 2 at a time down to the parking garage. She did not stop until she reached her car, did not breathe until she was inside with the doors locked, did not think until she was 3 blocks away, driving aimlessly through the dark Chicago streets. In her small apartment, Keisha sat on the edge of her bed and stared at her hands, at the calluses and wrinkles and evidence of years of hard work, and felt the impossible burden of what she now knew. "This cannot be true," she whispered to the empty room. But she had heard every word, every cruel, calculated word. And she had seen her daughter's file, seen the altered dosage, seen the murder weapon disguised as medicine. That day, Keisha could not eat the small portion of eggs and toast she had prepared for breakfast. Her stomach churned with nausea, her appetite erased by the conversation replaying endlessly in her mind. She called in sick to her other 2 jobs, something she had never done in 4 years. She could not work, could not function, could not stop seeing Sophia's name on that screen, could not stop hearing Brandon's voice saying, "By the time the third patient dies." She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift as morning light moved across the water-stained plaster, and the moral weight of her knowledge pressed down on her chest until she could barely breathe. She remembered Dr. Sarah's face when she had announced her engagement, the pure, unguarded joy, the way her hands had trembled slightly when she showed Keisha the ring Brandon had chosen. "Do you think it's beautiful?" she had asked Keisha, as if her opinion mattered, as if she were someone whose judgment she valued. Keisha had said yes, because the ring was beautiful, and because she had no reason then to believe Brandon was anything other than what he appeared to be. But now she knew the truth. Now she understood that Brandon's smiles were masks, that his affection was performance, that every touch and laugh and whispered endearment was calculated theater designed to rob a good woman of her money, her career, her freedom, and her faith in love itself. And worse, he was going to murder patients to do it, including Sophia. Before we continue with this story, please subscribe to this channel. My mom and dad said I can't get to 1,000 subscriber, let's prove them wrong. Don't forget to like this video, tell us in the comment where you are watching from, and share to more people. Now, let us continue. Including her baby girl, whose heart was already so fragile that the wrong dose of medication would stop it forever. Keisha's mind spun through her options like a wheel that would not stop turning. If she spoke, who would believe her? She was a cleaning woman, poor, uneducated by their standards, insignificant. Brandon was a doctor with credentials and charm and belonged to Dr. Sarah's world in a way Keisha never could. If Keisha told Dr. Sarah what she had heard, she might think Keisha was jealous or lying or trying to sabotage her happiness. Brandon would deny everything, would turn the accusation back on Keisha, would make her seem like a delusional employee with delusions. Keisha would lose her job. Without this job, Sophia would have no access to cardiac care. Maya would lose the stability they barely had. They would lose the apartment and end up in a shelter. If she stayed silent, she would watch Dr. Sarah marry a man who saw her as nothing more than a bank account with a medical license. She would watch patients die, would watch her own daughter die from poisoned medication. She would be complicit in murder, would carry the guilt of her silence for the rest of her life, would know that she could have saved them and chose safety instead. But if she went to the police, what evidence did she have? She had not recorded anything. She had not taken photographs. It would be her word against a respected doctor's word. And even if they believed her, investigating would take time. Time Sophia did not have. The medication was already ordered. The pharmacy would fill it this week. Sophia's next dose was in 4 days. The choice was impossible. Both paths led to ruin, hers or everyone else's. Keisha did not sleep that day or the night after. She moved through her hours like a ghost, her mind churning through scenarios and consequences. Sophia and Maya came home from school and asked if she was sick. "Just tired, babies," she lied, hugging them close, breathing in their scent, memorizing the feeling of their arms around her because she might lose everything trying to save them. She watched Dr. Sarah from a distance when she returned to work the next morning, and now she could see what she had missed before. The complete trust, the unguarded happiness, the way Dr. Sarah looked at Brandon like he was her future, her partner, her safety. And Keisha wanted to scream, wanted to shake her, wanted to shout, "He's going to destroy you," and laugh while he does it. But she could not. Not without proof, not without evidence, not without a plan. The days counted down. 11 days until the wedding, 4 days until Sophia's prescription refill, 2 weeks until the first altered medication would cause a patient crisis. Keisha made mistakes she had never made before. She dropped a tray of surgical instruments. She forgot to restock examination room 3. She spilled an entire bucket of cleaning solution across the hallway floor. Her hands shook constantly, and she would lose minutes staring at nothing, her mind trapped in the loop of that overheard conversation. "What's wrong with you?" one of the nurses asked one afternoon, not unkindly. "You're not yourself." "I'm fine," Keisha lied. Because what else could she say? I know the doctor is planning mass murder and I don't know how to stop him. At night in her apartment, Keisha would take out the photograph of her daughters, the only possession she treasured above all else, and study their faces. Sophia with her shy smile and delicate features, Maya with her bright eyes and protective arm around her sister's shoulders. Her girls, her reason for breathing, her reason for fighting. They had grown up too fast, had learned too young what it meant to be afraid, to be hungry, to watch their mother work herself to exhaustion just to keep them alive. But they were good girls, kind girls, smart girls who deserved a chance at life. 7 days before the wedding, Keisha made her decision. She could not speak directly. That path led only to disbelief and retaliation. But she could warn Dr. Sarah another way, could give her the information and let her decide what to do with it. She would write a letter, would tell her everything she had heard and seen, would leave the choice in her hands. And then she would find a way to protect Sophia herself, would switch the medication somehow, would find the altered prescription and fix it before it killed her daughter. Keisha had never been good at writing. Her education had ended at 16 when she had to get a job to help support her family, and formal writing had always confused her. But this was too important for her inadequacy to matter. She waited until Sophia and Maya were asleep, until the apartment was silent except for their soft breathing from the bedroom they shared. In her tiny kitchen by the light of a single lamp, she could not risk waking the girls. Keisha found a notebook she used for grocery lists. She sat at the small wooden table she had found at a thrift store, smoothed the paper flat, and began to write. Her handwriting was cramped and uneven, her spelling uncertain, but she poured truth onto the page. Dr. Sarah, I am writing to you because I saw and heard something that you need to know. I did not mean to listen or see, but I was at work early on Tuesday morning, 4 days ago, and Dr. Brandon was in the medical records room. I saw him through the door. He was taking pictures of patient files on his phone. He was changing medication dosages in the computer system. He was on a video call with a woman named Michelle, and they were talking about a plan. He said he is going to marry you to get access to your money and your practice. He said he has changed medical records for 14 patients so they will have complications and die. He said it will look like you made mistakes, like medical malpractice. He said you will be arrested and he will take over everything. The woman Michelle said they did this at 3 other practices before. He said after the wedding he will wait 6 months and then patients will start dying. He said you will go to prison and he will take everything and disappear. Dr. Sarah, he does not love you. He is using you. He is going to hurt people and blame you. One of the patients whose records he changed is my daughter Sophia. He changed her heart medication from 10 milligrams to 100 milligrams. That dose will kill her. Her prescription refill is in 2 days. I am scared. I do not know what to do. I do not have proof except what I saw and heard. But I swear on my daughter's lives that every word is true. He is dangerous. Please do not marry him. Please check the medical records. Please protect yourself and the patients. I am sorry to tell you this. I know it will hurt you. But you saved my daughter's life once, and I cannot let him take it away. You are a good person, and you deserve someone who loves you for real. From someone who cares. Keisha's hands trembled as she wrote, smudging the ink in places, crossing out words and rewriting them. The lamp flickered, throwing dancing shadows across the page. When she finished, she read it 3 times, checking for anything she had forgotten, any detail that might make the difference between belief and dismissal. She could not sign her name. That would make her too vulnerable, too easy to blame and punish. The anonymous warning might carry more weight anyway. Might seem like it came from someone with no personal stake, no reason to lie. Keisha folded the letter carefully, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She tucked it into her purse where it felt like it was burning through the fabric directly into her skin. Now she had to decide where to leave it, where Dr. Sarah would find it naturally, privately, in a way that would not raise suspicion. The office. Dr. Sarah had a private office where she did paperwork after hours. If Keisha slipped the letter into her desk drawer under her day planner where she checked her schedule every morning, she would find it tomorrow when she arrived. She would have time to read it alone, to process the information, to decide what to do. Keisha waited until her next shift at 4 in the morning, when the practice was always empty except for her. Her heartbeat so loud she was certain someone 3 blocks away could hear it. The practice was dark, except for emergency lighting, casting everything in shades of shadow. Dr. Sarah's office door was unlocked. Keisha slipped inside, her breath shallow, her hands sweaty despite the air conditioning. The desk was neat and organized, everything in its place. Keisha opened the top drawer slowly, wincing at the soft scrape of wood on wood. She lifted the leather day planner and slipped the folded letter underneath, pressing it flat so it would not be immediately visible, but would be found as soon as the planner was moved. The paper rustled softly, impossibly loud in the silence. Keisha froze, listening for footsteps, for voices, for any sign that someone had heard. Nothing, only her own panicked breathing and the distant hum of medical equipment on standby. She withdrew her hand, closed the drawer with agonizing slowness, and stared at the desk. The letter was hidden, invisible, waiting. Dr. Sarah would find it this morning when she came in to check her schedule. She would read Keisha's words, and then it would be in her hands, not Keisha's. She had done what she could. Relief and terror washed over her in equal measure. Keisha backed out of the office, closed the door with careful precision, and returned to her cleaning cart. She began her usual morning routine, mopping floors, sanitizing surfaces, restocking supplies, but her mind was elsewhere, constantly calculating. When would Dr. Sarah arrive? When would she open the drawer? What would she do? She watched the clock on the wall. 5 in the morning. 6, 7. Staff members began arriving. Nurses preparing for the day's surgeries. Receptionists opening the waiting area. Brandon arrived at 7:30, coffee in hand, whistling cheerfully, playing his role perfectly. At 8 o'clock, Dr. Sarah's car pulled into her reserved parking space. Keisha was restocking supplies in an examination room nearby, but positioned herself where she could see down the hallway toward the private offices. Dr. Sarah walked past, carrying her briefcase, wearing a dove-gray suit that made her look both professional and elegant. She called out good mornings to staff members, smiled at a nurse's joke, and disappeared into her office. The door closed. Keisha's heart climbed into her throat. She pretended to organize medical supplies, her hands moving automatically while her entire focus was on that closed door. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then faintly, so faintly Keisha almost missed it, she heard a sound. Not a shout, not a crash, but something worse. A gasp, sharp and shocked, followed by silence. The kind of silence that followed devastating news. The kind of silence that meant someone's world had just stopped turning. Keisha's hands trembled so badly she had to set down the box of gauze before she dropped it. She stood frozen in the examination room, staring at the hallway as if she could see through the wall to Dr. Sarah's office to whatever was happening. 15 minutes, 20. Then the office door opened. Dr. Sarah emerged, and everything about her had changed. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen, her jaw tight. She was still holding the letter, gripping it so tightly the paper crumpled in her fist. She walked directly to the medical records room, unlocked it, and went inside. She did not come out for an hour. Keisha continued her work, her body on autopilot, her mind screaming. She cleaned examination rooms that were already clean, reorganized supplies that were already organized, moved through the practice like a ghost. Other staff members began to whisper, "Have you seen Dr. Sarah?" She looked upset. Did something happen? At 10 o'clock, Dr. Sarah's office door opened again. She stepped into the hallway, her face composed now, but her eyes hard in a way Keisha had never seen. She walked directly to Brandon's office and knocked once, sharply. "Brandon, I need to speak with you, now, in my office." Her voice was cold, clipped, professional. Brandon looked up from his computer, smiled that charming smile. "Of course, darling. Is everything all right?" "My office. Now." Dr. Sarah turned and walked away. Brandon's smile faltered for just a moment, a flicker of uncertainty, but then he shrugged and followed her. The door to Dr. Sarah's office closed, and then the shouting started, not loud enough for words to be clear, but loud enough that everyone in the practice stopped what they were doing and stared at the closed door. The argument lasted 20 minutes. Then the door opened, and Brandon stormed out, his face red with fury, his hands clenched into fists. "You're insane!" he shouted back at Dr. Sarah. "You're going to believe some anonymous letter over me, over what we have together?" Dr. Sarah appeared in the doorway, and her voice was ice. "I checked the records, Brandon. I saw what you did. Every altered file, every changed dosage, every patient you marked for death. I called the medical board. I called the police. They're on their way." Brandon's face went from red to white. "You did what?" "I also called Michelle," Dr. Sarah continued, her voice shaking now with rage and pain. "Your partner, your accomplice. She was very chatty once I told her I had all the evidence and was willing to offer immunity to whoever cooperated first. She told me everything. The 3 other practices, the 12 million you stole, the patients who died, everything." Brandon backed away, his eyes darting toward the exit. "Sarah, listen to me." "I also froze all the bank accounts," Dr. Sarah said. "Changed all the passwords. Called my lawyer. The wedding is canceled. The partnership is dissolved, and you're going to prison." Brandon ran. He actually ran, pushing past a startled nurse, sprinting for the stairwell. But when he threw open the stairwell door, 2 police officers were already there, climbing the stairs. They grabbed him before he could react, spun him around, and snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. "Brandon Mitchell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, medical fraud, identity theft, and insurance fraud." The practice erupted into chaos. Staff members crowding the hallway, patients in the waiting room craning their necks to see, voices overlapping in shock and confusion. Keisha stood in the examination room doorway, tears streaming down her face, watching Brandon being led away in handcuffs, screaming about lawyers and rights and mistakes. Dr. Sarah stood in her office doorway, watching him go, her face unreadable. After the police left, after the initial chaos settled, after statements were given and Brandon was loaded into a police car, Dr. Sarah asked everyone to return to their stations. "We have patients scheduled," she said, her voice steady despite everything. "We will continue to provide care, business as usual." But she caught Keisha's eye across the hallway, and there was something in her gaze. Recognition, knowledge, gratitude. That evening, after the last patient had left, after the staff had gone home, after the practice was dark and silent, Keisha was finishing her cleaning when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Dr. Sarah standing in the hallway, still in her gray suit, but now with her hair down and her eyes exhausted. "Keisha," she said quietly, "may I speak with you?" Keisha's throat closed. She nodded, unable to speak. They walked to Dr. Sarah's office, and this time when Dr. Sarah gestured to the chair across from her desk, Keisha sat. Dr. Sarah held up the crumpled letter. "You wrote this." Not a question. A statement. Keisha's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "How did you know?" Dr. Sarah asked, her voice gentle. "I saw him," Keisha whispered. 4 days ago. I came in early and he was in the medical records room. I saw him change Sophia's medication. I heard him talking to that woman about his plan. I didn't mean to see it, I swear. I was just working. But I heard everything, and I saw my daughter's name, and I knew I had to tell you. I'm so sorry, Dr. Sarah. I know it wasn't my place. I know I should have stayed silent, but I couldn't. I couldn't let him kill people. I couldn't let him hurt you. You saved Sophia's life. You've been kind to me. You didn't deserve what he was planning." Dr. Sarah stood very still, and Keisha could not read her expression. Her mind raced with possibilities. She was angry that Keisha had eavesdropped, angry that she had interfered, angry that she had destroyed her happiness, even if that happiness was built on lies. Then Dr. Sarah did something Keisha had never expected. She came around the desk and pulled Keisha into a hug. A real hug, tight and desperate, and Keisha felt Dr. Sarah's shoulders shake. "Thank you," Dr. Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for saving all those patients. Thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth when it could have cost you everything." Keisha sobbed into Dr. Sarah's shoulder, all the fear and tension and terror of the past 4 days pouring out. "I was so scared you wouldn't believe me. I thought you'd fire me. I thought I'd lose everything." Dr. Sarah pulled back, gripping Keisha's shoulders, looking her directly in the eyes. "Do you know what would have happened if you hadn't told me? I would have married him. I would have given him access to everything, and in 6 months, patients would have started dying. 14 people, Keisha. 14 lives, including your daughter. I would have been arrested for murders I didn't commit. My career, my freedom, my entire life would have been destroyed, and I would have never understood why." Her voice cracked. "You risked your job, your safety, your family's security to save me, to save people you don't even know. Why? Why did you risk everything for me?" Keisha wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said simply. "My mama taught me to help people when they need help, even when it's hard, even when it's scary. You're a good person, Dr. Sarah. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not for what you have, and those patients deserve to live. I couldn't watch him destroy all of you and do nothing." Dr. Sarah covered her face with her hands, and her shoulders shook. For a moment, Keisha thought she was crying, but when she lowered her hands, she was smiling. A sad, broken smile, but real. "Do you know how rare that is? Real honesty, real courage, real integrity?" She shook her head in wonder. "You have more courage in your smallest finger than I have in my entire body. I'm a surgeon. I'm supposed to save lives. But you're the one who saved 14 lives today. You're the hero, Keisha, not me." She walked back behind her desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder. "I've been thinking about this all day. About what you did, about what you risked, about what you deserve." She slid the folder across the desk. "First, Sophia's medication. I've already contacted the pharmacy. The correct prescription is being filled right now, and I'm personally overseeing her cardiac care from now on, free of charge, forever. Whatever she needs, she gets. No questions, no bills." Keisha's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Inside was a check. More money than she had ever seen. More money than she earned in 2 years. Enough to pay rent for a year, to buy food, to get Maya new clothes, to fix the heater in their apartment. "That's not charity," Dr. Sarah said firmly before Keisha could protest. "That's a bonus for years of exceptional work and for saving my life and the lives of 14 patients and this entire practice. You earned every penny." "But there's more," Dr. Sarah continued, pulling out another document. "I'm creating a new position, medical practice manager. It's yours if you want it. It pays 3 times what you make now with full health benefits for you and your daughters. You'll oversee operations, manage staff, coordinate patient care. You'll have an office, a real salary, respect." Keisha stared at the job offer, unable to speak. "I also want to pay for your education," Dr. Sarah said. "If you want to become a nurse, a physician's assistant, whatever you want to study, I'll cover it. Tuition, books, everything. You're smart, Keisha. You're observant. You're compassionate. You deserve a chance to do more than clean floors. And your daughters," Dr. Sarah added. "I've set up education funds for both of them. College, medical school if they want it. Whatever they need. They'll never have to worry about money for education." Keisha could not speak, could not breathe, could not process what was happening. "Dr. Sarah, I can't." "Yes, you can," Dr. Sarah said gently. "Let me do this. Let me help you the way you helped me. You gave me back my life, Keisha. You gave me the truth when everyone else would have stayed silent. You have more integrity than anyone I've ever known. You deserve everything good this world has to offer." Keisha broke down completely, sobbing into her hands, overwhelmed by gratitude and relief and the sudden lifting of years of crushing weight. Dr. Sarah came around the desk again and held her while she cried, and for the first time in 4 years, Keisha felt safe, truly safe. Over the following weeks, Keisha's life transformed in ways she had never dared imagine. Brandon was formally charged with 14 counts of attempted murder, multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and theft. Michelle was arrested as an accomplice. The investigation uncovered 3 previous practices where they had executed the same scheme, resulting in 8 patient deaths and millions stolen. Both faced life in prison. Sophia received comprehensive cardiac care under Dr. Sarah's direct supervision. Her medication was corrected immediately, and follow-up tests showed her heart was stable and healing. Maya flourished, knowing her family was finally secure, her grades improving, her smile returning. And Keisha herself began taking evening classes in healthcare administration, discovering she had a mind for organization and patient advocacy that surprised even her. She moved into her new office, a real office with her name on the door. Keisha Martinez, practice manager. She learned to use the computer systems, to manage staff schedules, to coordinate with insurance companies. She discovered she was good at it, very good at it. The other staff members treated her differently now, not as invisible cleaning staff, but as someone whose opinion mattered, someone whose courage had saved lives, someone who belonged. Dr. Sarah herself slowly healed from the betrayal, grew wiser and more cautious, but not bitter. She threw herself into her work with renewed passion, grateful every day that she had discovered the truth before it was too late. She often told Keisha that she had taught her the most important lesson of her life, that true character reveals itself not in credentials or charm or polished surfaces, but in quiet moments when no one is watching, when the cost of doing right is highest and the reward uncertain. The medical practice became a gentler place. The waiting room felt warmer somehow, or perhaps Keisha was simply able to notice it, now that fear and exhaustion no longer consumed her every waking moment. Children's laughter sometimes drifted through the halls when Sophia and Maya visited after school, and Dr. Sarah would smile at the sound, grateful for the noise, for the life, for the reminder that trust and goodness still existed in the world. On quiet evenings, Keisha would sit in her office with textbooks spread across her desk, studying medical terminology and healthcare ethics, and she would remember the woman she had been, terrified, exhausted, invisible, and marvel at how far she had come. She thought of the letter written at her kitchen table with trembling hands, the terrible risk she had taken, the moment when she had chosen courage over safety. She thought of Brandon sometimes, too, sitting in a prison cell, his charm useless, his schemes exposed, facing the consequences of treating human lives as nothing more than tools for theft. But mostly, Keisha thought about the simple truth that had guided her. Doing the right thing was often the hardest thing, but it was the only thing that allowed you to live with yourself afterward. 18 months after Brandon's arrest, Dr. Sarah attended a medical conference in Boston where she met another surgeon, a widower with kind eyes and a genuine smile who treated the catering staff with the same respect he showed the keynote speakers. Someone who valued character over appearances, honesty over performance. They began as friends, grew into something more, and when he proposed, Dr. Sarah called Keisha first. "I want you to meet him," she said. "I want you to tell me if he's real. I trust your judgment more than anyone's." Keisha met him and saw immediately what Dr. Sarah saw. A good man. A real man. Someone who loved her for her skill, her kindness, her strength. The wedding was small and genuine, held in the practice's rooftop garden, filled with laughter that didn't sound like performance. And Keisha stood among the guests not as staff, but as family, as someone who belonged, as someone who mattered, as someone who had earned her place through courage and integrity. Sophia and Maya wore matching dresses that Dr. Sarah had bought them, twirling between the chairs, healthy and happy and safe. Keisha watched them with tears in her eyes, remembering the night she had written that letter, terrified of losing everything, choosing to speak anyway. In the end, it was not wealth or power or beauty that had triumphed in this story, but truth. It was not grand declarations or public heroism that had saved Dr. Sarah and 14 patients, but a quiet act of conscience by someone the world had taught to stay silent. Keisha had been just a cleaning woman with calloused hands and worn scrubs, but she had chosen honesty over fear, had chosen to protect people who could not protect themselves, had chosen to risk everything for what was right. And in that choice, she had proven that courage does not belong only to the powerful, that the smallest voice can speak the most important truth, and that the heart willing to sacrifice for others will always find light, no matter how deep the darkness. If you enjoy this story, please don't forget to subscribe for more intriguing stories. Like, share, and tell us in the comment section where you are watching from. We would like to know more about our viewers. This is Fortune Tales by Simple.